Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. In the next hour or so, we're going to show you how to create truly engaging market research dashboards that not only wow your audience, but also align with their needs. Us today is Alexander Skorka. He's Dapresy's chief evangelist and has many, many years in the market research industry, and he is the true expert on data visualization. So he's going to take it away for you today. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. Thanks, Jess, and welcome everyone to this webinar about how to create really engaging market research dashboards. I have two examples I would like to introduce in more detail later. And before we start, I would just like to talk a minute about the company, Dapresy. Dapresy provides a very powerful platform for building very flexible dashboards, especially for the market research industry. It comes with a lot of very specific features like a crosstab, a document archive, and a lot of very specific market research features that allows you to really create engaging dashboards that wow your audience. We are located in 8 offices around the world with 60 employees. We are growing quite fast with an average of 30%. And until today, more than 14,000 dashboards have been developed with Dapresy and are used in more than 1,700 enterprises around the world. So we work on the one hand with market research agencies, on the other hand with enterprises. All have in common they want to visualize market research data in a very compelling way, self-explaining, meaningful, and last but not least, actionable. Today's webinar is basically about how to create good dashboards. And good dashboards provide normally a key fact at a glance, and of course provide also easy and interactive access to data. But the question is it already enough today? And I have my doubts. When we look at the success of the insight, we see that all the hard work you do when you create a questionnaire, when you manage your field work, when you do the programming, processing, and analysis and project management of your work, all this is under the surface for the customer. The only thing a market research customer or a user of a market research study sees is the quality of the insights and the experience he gets when gaining insights. So that is really the recognized value. And this is why we have to invest a lot of time and also money, of course, in making this experience as good as possible. Another factor is that we have to compare the existing way of presenting information to customers to the new world of dashboards. So let's compare for a minute live presentations with dashboards. A live presentation normally is some kind of push communication, a very controlled way. It tells a narrative arc and does storytelling. It can focus on the most relevant facts. So it's, of course, low level of details presented. But the good thing is that you can answer comprehensive questions as well as questions of how to interpret results. And it's time efficient because it might only take an hour and you know basically everything about the most relevant insights. Whereas a dashboard is more some kind of pull strategy. So the user is high and dry. He sits in front of his computer. Of course, he has access to a wide range of details. He also, of course, can do whenever he wants to do an analysis, he can do that on demand. But there are some risks. One is the risk of investing too much time without really gaining insights. That can happen if you seek in the wrong area of your data. There's also a risk of misinterpretation and drawing wrong conclusions because there's no one who really can help him or can answer comprehensive questions. And last but not least, if the project is quite big, there's a huge risk of getting lost in data. So we have to consider how can we wow our audience when we are not live in the presentation or sitting beside the respective user. So how can we go from good to great? And I have a very simple example which maybe help you to understand what a good dashboard should be all about. You all know this, or maybe some of you know this, that in the past there were printed maps, and whenever you want to drive from A to B with your car, you use this map. The first task was you had to seek and find the spot where you are by looking around, reading street names, and then, of course, trying to find those names on the map. Then you had to do the same with the goal. Then you started to investigate which routes are the best to go from A to B. Of course, there were some alternatives. Some might be more efficient. Some might be more or faster. So that, taking, for instance, motorways is, of course, faster than maybe using some small routes. And, of course, then you started your journey. And during your way from A to B, there was always a challenge of identifying when to turn left. And then, of course, sometimes there was a discussion about, is it your left, my left? Some people turned the map just to get there. So it was quite hard work. And, of course, whenever there was a traffic jam, so preventing you from really being in time at your goal, at your destination, you had to find a new way and an alternative route to get there. So luckily, there were some smart guys that invented a GPS system. And a GPS system can be compared a little bit like the dashboard of the future. The great thing is with a GPS system, it exactly knows where you are, which is always good. You have, of course, to enter your destination, just to make sure that it's like, a little bit like, defining your strategy of your company. And then it suggests different alternatives. Some might be very fast, some might be the shortest. And then it's up to you to decide the respective route. And then, of course, it helps you on your way. It tells you exactly when to turn left and when to turn right. It helps you when you run into a traffic jam with a proactive suggestion of alternative routes. And when you compare data visualization today, it's almost something like, the original printed map. So you have, first of all, to understand where you are. Then, of course, you have to identify the different alternatives and options you might choose. And, of course, it's sometimes difficult, especially when you talk about a tracker, to ongoingly try to find again or evaluate again the current situation. So what we have to do is we have to turn our data visualization into some kind of guided situation where we help users to easily understand where they are and how to get to the goal they would like to achieve. So we have to talk about great dashboards and how to wow the audience. And the first thing is, instead of just presenting an at-a-glance view, great dashboards should prioritize action fields and tell a story. They also should grant easy access to insights instead of just granting easy access to data. They should have a pathway to insight that enable an efficient gaining of insights. It should always provide further on-demand deep dive analysis capabilities. And last but not least, it should guide users through a sequence of well-explained business questions. So it already today adapts a lot of the GPS system approach. So telling me where to go, telling me exactly by using a pathway how to get there. And of course, whenever there's a traffic jam, that I maybe have additional capabilities to do further analytics to find an alternative route. And this is what I would like to now show you with two examples. And both examples can be, of course, also seen in action. Just contact us via our website, dapresy.com, and some of my colleagues is more than happy to present them live so that you can experience them on your own. The first thing I would like to introduce is how to guide users through a sequence of well-explained business questions. And I feel that this is the most common pitfall of all dashboards, that they think from a data perspective instead of thinking from a business question perspective. And this dashboard is about a company called CarFix. They are an auto repair shop, and they are located in the US and have several, of course, shops in the southeast of the US. And they run a customer satisfaction survey ongoing. So whenever you visited one of their shops, you get a questionnaire and you can answer about your last experience. And this is why they also decided on delivering the results to all their car shop owners so that they can fine-tune their performance and improve, of course, the services. And they decided on going down the route by dividing the task into three areas. So the first one focuses on business questions like what issues do our customers actually complain about, and how can we solve them on an individual level. So this is something which is more related to a daily task. So on a daily level, the manager should go into the system, look for the latest complaints, and then work on those complaints to make customers satisfied. On a monthly level, it's good to talk about weak spots. So the next pair of business questions is about what are our weak spots that prevent us from providing best-in-class customer service, and where and how are they caused? A very important question. You might not ask this two questions every day, but every month. And then last but not least, maybe on a quarterly level, it's about comparing your performance with your peers and trying to understand what the peers do differently, especially those who are performing much better than you do. And I just would like to guide you through the core concepts of this dashboard so that you get a better understanding of what I mean with trying to answer these kind of business questions. The first part is really working daily on customer issues. And this is not really about data visualization, but of course a dashboard can be used to manage customer complaints. And in this case, you see a table with all the latest complaints from customers that visited one of your shops. And there is a rule that defines whenever a customer is unsatisfied. So for instance, when he answered directly in one of the questions that he was unsatisfied, or if he answers an open-end question about any complaints. And what you can see is that there's a status where you can see, okay, am I already working on this case? Then there is some kind of classification that helps you, okay, that was related to my maintenance department or the general repair department or the collision repair department. And then it's always good to have a rating so that you know which might be very, very urgent cases. And then you already see some comments, so the complaints, so that you get a first idea of what really happened. And then to work on these kind of cases on an individual basis, it's good to just, drill into the case and get all the details about the customer on the one hand, on the other hand, maybe about the answers he provided through the questionnaire. And then you, of course, have two options. One is just trying to get a better understanding of what happened to improve next time, or you really get in touch with the customer. So pick up the phone, call him, and try to understand in more detail what really made him unsatisfied. And then last but not least, of course, to agree also on any kind of actions that might solve the issue. So for instance, in case the quality of parts or materials was inferior, so that you maybe offer him a new visit and of course, redo the work to make the car work properly. So that is a very, very operational task. So it's really about picking up one specific case and working on this case to make a customer happy. But then, of course, from time to time on a monthly basis, it's important to work on the overall weak spots to improve your overall performance. And in this case, if you drill into the second section of the dashboard, you first of all get an overview about all the items that drive satisfaction, starting from felt welcome and quality of work to easy scheduling, reasonable waiting time, and speed of carried out repairs. You see the comparison to best and worst in class. You see a comparison to the previous months, so that you immediately see if the actions you took last month have been successful or not. But in this case, you know, it's also important just to focus on the weak spots. This is why they are highlighted. So Carfix wants people always to work only on those 3 items. But of course, they should also keep those in mind, which maybe are getting worse. But Carfix decided that it's better just to focus on 3 instead of 8 items, because that helps the entire team to improve much faster than trying to find action for all 8 items. And to get a better understanding of what happened and what drives the bad performance of those 3 weak spots, you can just click on Analyze Further, and you get a one-pager that helps you on the one hand to again see the 3 weak spots, and it's the percentage of people agree with this item. So only 53% of customers agree with the item easy scheduling. And then it is split by department, so that you're able to see, are there any differences between my departments, because they are, you know, they are different team leads. This is why I would like to understand, is it more related to the maintenance or the collision repair? And in this case, we can see it's related to the maintenance department. And then last but not least, there's even a split into brands, so that you can easily identify, is there any specific car brand driver that causes this weak spot, or is it more a general concern? And then last but not least, you'll even see the comments that are related to the respective item and the respective department or brand. So the core idea is, okay, what are my actual weak spots? Which of my departments causes this low performance? Are there any specific car brands that have a more negative impact than others? And last but not least, what do customers complain about in particular? And this kind of approach is basically about localizing the issue, which is the first 3 steps. So what weak spots do I have? What department is affected and what brands? And then last but not least, understanding the reason, which is driven by the open comment of customers. And together, the localized issues and understanding the reason leads to actionable insights. So that is the very, very operational way of helping specific units in an enterprise to increase their performance. Last but not least, on a quarterly level, it's good to consider just to talk to some of your peers. So in this case, the first page is just about identifying who's good and who's bad, so to benchmark your own car shop with others. So in this case, we have a quite broad benchmarking, starting with, of course, your own car repair shop, and then the best in class auto repair shop, all shops, so the average, and then the state Orlando belongs to, and then all the peers within the state. And the core idea is, of course, first of all, to rank yourself, which is good. But then as an additional idea, it's about maybe picking up the phone, calling the guys from Miami, and just to discuss a little bit what they do differently. And to support this communication, there's a second page in the dashboard that on the left hand shows all the auto repair shops, and in this case, overall satisfaction versus NPS, because we can assume that there is a correlation between overall satisfaction. So the more people are satisfied, the higher the NPS will be. And as we can see, yes, that's true. And on the right hand, we see all the items, so the key drivers. that drive satisfaction. And we also see a direct comparison. And in this case, it might be of interest to compare yourself. And unfortunately, Orlando is the worst in class with the best in class, which is in this case, Columbus. And this is why it's easy with the dashboard just to filter on Columbus and to compare yourself with the best in class and to see where are the big differences. And then maybe to pick up the phone and call this manager and just to discuss maybe in this case, quality of work, cleanliness, or even the reasonable waiting time, why there is such a big difference. To help the manager to prioritize much better, we even have highlighted those items that correlate most with NPS. So in this case, quality of work and cleanliness of workshop are those two items that drive NPS most. So it's worth to look at those two items first. But then, of course, as a second priority, it makes sense to look into the other items too, and just to see how you can improve your business. So what we do is basically, on the one hand, we look at the specific case, work on a specific customer case. We look into weak spots and help to localize the weak spots and try to understand the reasons why they exist. And last but not least, we support the knowledge sharing, the best practice sharing within an enterprise by helping people to understand the differences and to help people to understand where it might be meaningful to invest more time and effort to increase performance. One interesting combination would be also to maybe compare this this shop with this one, because both have the same level of satisfaction, but the upper one seemed to manage the transformation into a better NPS, much better. So it would be quite interesting to compare those two, just to see what is this auto repair shop doing differently compared to this one, just to see if there are any interesting insights that drive NPS more than others. So left one, which peers have achieved higher NPS or converted satisfaction into NPS much better? Right part is then really what items make the difference, and then really go into a discussion with the respective manager and try to find out the differences and the actions they take to achieve better results. As a second example, I would like to talk about a company which is called FlyNow. And FlyNow is a charter service company that provides flights within Europe. So whenever you are a business traveler and you want to have your private jet driving whenever you want from A to B, then FlyNow is a good choice. And this dashboard is also based on a customer experience study. So they also run a huge customer experience program. And it helps, in this case, and this is all why I picked it, it really very well illustrates how to prioritize action fields and tell stories. It also very, very good illustrates a pathway to insights, and last but not least also shows how to integrate on-demand deep dive analysis. It all starts, of course, with a big overview. So it's about prioritizing action fields. What we see on the first page, you see the satisfaction KPIs, the loyalty index, and an NPS score. Those are the three KPIs the company is monitoring, and those three KPIs have to be improved. They are also bonus relevant. And since these are the global results, it's always good also to look into the country organization and to see where countries perform pretty well and where there's maybe a need for improvement. And what we see, we have a threshold system included that immediately highlights the good and the bad areas. And in this case, for instance, we see that Sweden, Germany, and France are operating pretty well, and whereas in some of the other European countries we have some issues. And in this case, the manager is interested in looking into Italy in more detail, so he can click on Italy and get into the next level, which is the overall country view, which contains all the relevant measures that are gathered from the survey. So on the one hand, you see, that's the left hand. On the left hand, you see the touch point experience. So they divided all the touch points into 3 processes. The first one is the booking process. The second one is the service. And last but not least, the complaint handling process. And of course, when we just combine all the experiences, we can assume that they drive overall satisfaction. And of course, overall satisfaction itself will drive emotional bonding. So the more people are satisfied, the more they're emotional bonded. The same with repurchase. So the more I'm happy with the latest flights, the more likely I will rebook the next flight. And then, of course, also with cross-buying, like, for instance, also being willing to book the catering service or the shuttle service. And then last but not least, of course, satisfaction also drives recommendation. And the company defined that those 4 components, so emotional bonding, repurchase, cross-buying, and recommendation, in the end, defines the loyalty index. So in this case, we see that on the right side, which is the most important indicator, so the loyalty index is for FlyNow the most important indicator, that if this one goes down, they can just easily go from right back to left to identify the cause of the issue. So why the loyalty index went down by 2 percentage points. And in this case, you can see that also satisfaction went down, that emotional bonding went down a little bit. It's the same with repurchase, cross-buying, and recommendation. And satisfaction went down mainly because services was rated worse and complaint handling was rated worse. So it's time to click, of course, on the left side to get more details about specific touch points. And in this case, we see all the touch points they're evaluating. And from the left side, where people get in touch with FlyNow via the website and the call center, so you can book the flight via your website and call center. And you get, of course, some kind of proposal, which includes conditions. Then you have a booking process where you really book the flight and the times, etc., etc. Then there is a shuttle service that picks you up at home and takes you to the airport. Then the flight itself, the catering during the flight. Of course, all this is managed by service staff. So they're involved in all those 3 services. And then last but not least, you send out a billing or an invoice. And then whenever something goes wrong during the entire process, there's a process that takes care of complaint handling. And arranging a customer journey logically makes sense because, for instance, you might see that conditions are not rated very well. So maybe people feel that the catering is quite expensive. And this is why, of course, their expectation is maybe higher. And this leads to a quite bad result with catering. So maybe people just expected when they have to pay so much money for catering that they also really get a first-class catering. Maybe that didn't happen. So now it's, of course, possible to drill even further. So we can click into catering just to see more details about catering. And in this case, we see the split by the respective customer classes. So customer class A and B, traveler type like frequent or occasional travelers, then international or domestic flights, and last but not least, is FlyNow my preferred airline, or is there any other competitor that is my preferred airline? And what we see, and this is what I define as a pathway to insight, you start at the top with just your KPIs, you drill into more details from here to see or to look at a specific country, seeing the KPIs again, but also additional performance indicators, like in this case, the performance of the touch points, but also things like emotional bonding, repurchase, etc., etc. And then you can drill, if you see, okay, this is my issue, I can drill into further details by trying to understand the customer's journey. I also, of course, maybe could go into repurchase, just try to understand what maybe drives the repurchase, or are there any other reasons why maybe repurchase went down. And then last but not least, of course, I can go one step further into a split by customer segments. And of course, I could go even one step further by now clicking on one of those rectangles, and then maybe get the open comments again, or at least get some kind of items that show me why people, so coded items, where I just see why a customers rated my catering better in the last months. And of course, since we cannot really predict all the future business questions, like, okay, first business question on level 1 is, okay, where is my performance caused? Which we see by the split into countries or the indicators. Then, of course, by trying to understand a specific country, and in this case, trying to understand which touch point drives performance in a very good way, which one prevents us from delivering good services, into understanding a specific touch point performance with regard to customer segments. So those are typical business questions, but of course we cannot predict or assume all business questions from the very first beginning. So this is why a good guided analytics dashboard always is embedded in some kind of on-demand deep dive analysis. So in our case, we have a very, very strong cross-tabulation that allows you, whenever you see a very interesting fact down here or wherever you are, then you can, of course, cross specific items and even, drill and slice and dice data even further, so that you can much better understand the small differences maybe within a segment, for instance. To summarize what we have learned, so a great dashboard that wow your audience, first of all, guide users through a sequence of business questions. So never just provide a tool that allows you to slice and dice the data and filter data. So always start with a business question, always consider business questions as also some kind of narrative arc, so that people can start with the big business question and going then more and more into the details. It always should support you by prioritizing action fields. Since the data volume and volume of information is getting bigger and bigger, it is more important for us to avoid becoming overwhelmed by information, that a good dashboard also prioritize action fields. It should tell a story by showing cause and effect relationships. So just remember, touch point experience leading to overall experience, overall satisfaction, driving emotional bonding, repurchase, etc., and all this in the end drives loyalty. This helps a even unexperienced user to identify a cause of an issue and understand how things affect each other. And then last but not least, guides through built-in pathways to insights, not just, leave or provide a technical tool, but also just provide the different screens and different ways to analyze information in a very logical and business question driven way, so that you can start at the top and then step by step get closer to the true cause of the issue. And last but not least, since we can't predict everything, it's always important to, of course, provide further on-demand analysis capabilities, so that people, in case they feel, oh, that's a very interesting issue I've identified in my dashboard, but I would like to understand that in more detail and would like to slice and dice it further, that they have the capability to do so. so that they get a more comprehensive view on the situation. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. I'm happy to answer your questions if there are any.
Alexander, we do have one question so far, and that is that the two examples that you showed earlier were built using the Dapresy Pro software, and they focused primarily on customer satisfaction.
Yes.
Does Dapresy Pro handle other market research data, for instance, like brand tracking studies, syndicated studies?
Definitely. So since we are a very powerful and flexible platform, you can take any kind of market research content, so to say, and build a dashboard with Dapresy Pro, especially when we talk about brand trackers. It's very powerful because you can, of course, also commingle some further information that helps you to understand, for instance, a brand funnel in more detail. It's also very, very helpful if we talk about mystery shopping, for instance, because you can visualize, for instance, a store mirror and help a store manager to understand where people experience or how people experience the store. It also can help you with advertising testing, because we even can include the respective media, like, for instance, the ad, the print ad, into the dashboard, so that you can see on the one hand the results of the ad, but also the ad itself, which is always helpful when interpreting results.
Perfect, thank you.
And of course, if you want to see them in action, feel free to contact us. And one of my colleagues is happy to really guide you through and show you all the interactivity I couldn't show you in these 30 minutes. So there's a lot more to.
Absolutely. If you just head to dapresy.com, you're able to contact us or speak directly with an expert to help answer any questions that you have. But it looks like that was all the questions that we had today during this webinar. Thank you again, everyone who attended, and thank you, Alexander, for the wonderful presentation. We'll follow up with you soon, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you too. Bye. Have a nice day.